If you're ever offshore and you fall overboard, lesson number one is the first thing you do is zip up your fly. That way your friends won't laugh at you at your funeral.
Patrick Childress. We'll get back with Hank Schmidt in just a few minutes. I wanted to tell you, back in 1980, I was crossing the Pacific. I was into the second year of a 3-year solo circumnavigation on a 27-foot sailboat. On a pleasant day with the wind off the port quarter, I'm sailing along, and I was taking a pee off the back side of the boat, which was nothing unusual, but just as I had been warned, the boat took a sudden, very unexpected lurch, and I was on my way over the back. It took all of my strength and effort to teeter myself back up onto the cockpit. And from that day forward, I never peed over the side of the boat while at sea again. I always used the head and sat down. Checking with some other people, I first met John Neal in Papeete, Tahiti in 1980. John was sailing on his 26-foot Mahina. It's been 30 years now that he and his wife Amanda have been operating offshore expeditions, most recently on their Mahina Tier 3. And I asked John if it's addressed in their crew manual about peeing over the side. He said no, but it is in their crew orientation. And nobody pees over the side off of his boat while at sea, and even men sit down while they use the head. Checking with another source yet was Andrew Burton, who lives in Newport, Rhode Island. He's been sailing most of his life professionally, delivering sailboats across oceans, operating private sailboats and charter boats, worked as a magazine editor, and he has the same policy. Nobody pees over the side of the boat while at sea, and men sit down using the head. So this is what the pros do, how they approach the safety of keeping people on the deck of their boat. Hank Schmidt, who operates Offshore Passage Opportunities, it is in his crew manual that nobody pees over the side and men sit down on their head. But let's get back with Hank. He's going to give us a little more information and show us how to operate a head, make sure that it's flushed properly so the whole crew comes out smelling good.
We were having a little fun with you up on deck, but it is serious business about taking a leak offshore, and you really want to be careful. So we really recommend not to do that offshore. And again, almost kidding aside, but you really do want to make sure your fly is zipped up if you do fall in the water. But while we're on the subject, we thought we would talk about using the marine head. It's a thing that a lot of people are reluctant to ask questions on because it seems like such a simple thing, but so many people do not use it correctly. What you have to understand about using the head, and again, some people call it the head, I call it the gym, because that's where we do get a lot of our exercise. Once you put something into the toilet, we have our bottle to demonstrate. It goes in, and you'll see that we have on the side, just for flush, which water goes out. It's actually dry bowl, and then there's another saying for flush. So you want to evacuate the bowl first with it on dry, and then you have to envision what's going on. Everything is going into the toilet through hoses, and it has to go up a hose through what they call a vented loop, then down to the hose and either into your holding tank or offshore. We're going to talk about just using it offshore where we are pumping everything over the side. So you want to make sure first that everything disappears from your bowl. So now there's nothing there, it's empty, but then you switch it over to the wet side. And as you pump, you get your exercise and water comes in. And what we're doing is that water is forcing everything in the hoses several feet. So into the hose, up over the vented loop, down, and then back over the side. And then after you've pumped it 10, 15 times, you want to go back to the dry bowl. And a marine head, unlike at home, you want to leave it empty, so there is no water. If there is any backflush, what happens is because of that hose, if it does backflush a little bit, it's going to backflush with clean seawater and you're not going to smell up your head. If you don't pump enough, any backflush might still be contaminated water and your head's going to start stinking a lot. So you really want to make sure you pump a lot. So it's the big hose at the bottom, which is the evacuation hose. So you want to make sure you pump a whole lot to move everything through the big hose underneath. You'll see it goes behind the toilet, behind the bulkhead. and then it goes ahead and travels up through the big loop to your Y valve, where you set for it to go either to holding tank or overboard. Dockside, of course, where we are now on holding tank. Once we get offshore in the ocean, switch it over to seacock. And then when it's seacock, of course, pump it a whole bunch of times, make sure you get rid of everything. Dockside, either try and use the facilities at the marina, or don't pump as much so you don't fill up your holding tanks. Now, if you're doing number 2, of course, you don't want to start with a dry bowl, so you might want to go to your head, put it on wet, put some water in there. And then some boats really don't like you to throw anything, even toilet paper, down the toilet. You can use toilet paper as long as you don't use too much toilet paper. I like to say is compromise between poor Angelina Jolie, that got vilified for saying that you only needed 1 piece of toilet paper. And then that's a little extreme on one end. And on the other end, try not to do what my oldest daughter did and make a catcher's mitt. Way too much. So as long as you use smaller pieces, put them in, it really isn't a problem. You're not going to clog your toilet. But again, only toilet paper. And then again, you need to put it on dry first. If you keep it on wet, you're just going to keep circulating, not emptying the bowl. But you put it on dry to evacuate. Once it all disappears, it's just sitting right at the beginning of your hoses. So you put it on wet, and then you get your exercise in the gym. Pump a good 10, 15 times, move everything along the lines, gets over that vented loop, and down over the side, and overboard, and then back to the dry position, and we dry to get rid of everything. And that's how you'd leave it. In the course of your trip, if water's coming back and it's still smelling, you're not pumping enough, so you just have to pump more. And that, again, is a nice way to keep your head not smelling too bad, not worrying about any clogs, and you'll keep everybody very happy without any problems. There are no plumbers at sea. Captain's usually drafted. He doesn't like that. So here's to not plugging up any heads.
I hope the information in this video was worthwhile for you. If so, please click on the thumbs up button, and if you haven't already, on the subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you soon.